If I say the name Laci Peterson, you can probably fill in the rest all by yourself. A mysterious disappearance, a gruesome discovery of her mutilated body and that of her unborn baby. The evidence that convicted her husband, Scott Peterson, who, by the way, now has a fighting chance at a new trial. Laci's case was covered and followed and analyzed and debated all around the world. The case of Evelyn Hernandez, not so much. Actually, not at all, really. But it seems Laci was not the only young woman pregnant whose body turned up in the San Francisco Bay in the early 2000s. Evelyn was 24, a single mom from El Salvador, just days away from giving birth to her second child. Laci, too, was 9 months pregnant. Evelyn went missing in May 2002 and was found dead in the Bay 2 months later. Laci went missing in December 2002 and was found in the Bay 4 months later. For all of their eerie similarities, the cases are very different in one respect. Scott Peterson was caught and jailed for life. But the person who killed Evelyn, whom some have called the other Laci Peterson, he's never been caught, even though, like Scott, suspicion fell on the father of her baby. Evelyn's case is being featured in a 3-part Hulu docuseries called Murder Has Two Faces, and the face of my next guest features prominently in that documentary. Bobby Chacon is a retired FBI agent who served as a diver in the San Francisco Bay looking for Laci Peterson. Bobby, all these years that I've known you and interviewed you, I did not know that you were diving and looking for Laci's body. And here we are on this story. Why don't we know Evelyn Hernandez's name?
Well, that's the good question. That's the big question raised by this series. In the several episodes that we've done, each of them has a case that generated, if national, if not global, attention, and then a very similar case in the same geographic area that has many, many more similarities than differences, and received almost no attention. And that's the question of it. Is it what decides and who decides what gets that coverage? And then the audience, I guess, decides what's going to kind of go viral, what's going to catch, the audience's attention and drive the coverage of the story.
But also there's the $100,000 reward. I mean, that should be a driver. It's just sort of astounding. But there are some reasons that other people will say. Some people will say it's missing white woman. That always gets the coverage over a woman who's not white and is missing. But there is also the whole Scott Peterson circus, the way he behaved, the Amber Fry mistress, the lying, just the excessive, compulsive lying in the case. And the fact that he was taken off to the Mexican border too. I mean, that does factor into this.
Well, I think so. I do think so. But I do think there's something to be said for, looking at the victims. I think if we looked overall at all of these cases, you would find some demographic similarities between the victims that aren't covered as opposed to the victims that are covered. Because even in Evelyn's case, you did have, it was almost a reverse situation. So it wasn't a married person with a mistress. But in Evelyn's case, the father of her child was also married to another woman. So it was almost a reverse situation. He had this child coming out of wedlock, basically. Now, he's never been named a suspect or even a person of interest, but he, and I'm not going to name him, but he quickly, got a lawyer. And after just a few interviews with the police, basically stopped cooperating in the case. So, it is a question of, we know, like in my situation, I understand that, press brings pressure. Pressure brings resources. Resources brings results. And in a lot of these cases, this pressure that mounts from the coverage on the mayor, the police chief, whoever, even the FBI boss is involved in certain cities. And then because that pressure, they give you the resources, and then the resources are able to bring some results. And so that's kind of the crux of what the creator of the show, Lisa Cortez, and certainly our host, Robin Roberts, really get to the bottom of that kind of issue. What drives the publicity in one case and not in the other? And, in particular, in this case, the Laci Peterson case is solved, basically, and the Evelyn Hernandez case never was.
And let's just add that cute little 5-year-old that she was holding on to, that child disappeared as well and was never found. So that boy is still a mystery, the body never found. And the similarities between Laci and Evelyn, both of their torsos came up in the San Francisco Bay. They were missing their heads, their arms. Laci was missing her legs, but Evelyn wasn't. The child was never found, not in San Francisco Bay or otherwise. But does it give any rise? Obviously, you always want to think about the fathers of a baby because there could be domestic issues at foot. But does it bear discussing that potentially the same person did it to both of these victims?
Well, I think that, Laci disappeared, even though their bodies wound up in the same general area, although on opposite sides. So Evelyn was found on the San Francisco side of the bay. Laci was found basically on the Oakland side of the bay. And Laci went missing in Modesto, which was significantly different geographic areas. And so I think that defense was raised possibly by Scott's defense team in his trial. But I think there are certainly enough differences between their situations that the same person doing both murders is probably a very, very long shot of a chance.
Interesting. Bobby Chacon, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. And keep us posted if anything from all this new media turns up any clues to this cold case. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ashleigh.
And folks, you can see Bobby in Hulu's new docuseries. It's called Murder Has Two Faces. It's hosted by Robin Roberts, as Bobby just said, and it is streaming now.